Lawrence Jackson. I'm an associate professor of dance in the School of Dance here at Mason, and I'm starting my second semester here.
I'm also a newbie here at Mason, William Lake Jr., Director of Concert Bands, Assistant Professor of Music in the School of Music here at Mason. I think it was one of our wonderful CVPA faculty meetings where we were introducing like the new people in the different disciplines, and the School of Dance, the director there was talking about the new people, and it was like Lawrence Jackson, and I went, oh. And I mean, there's no secret, I'm thinking, oh, another, black male joining the faculty here, and he's in dance. And I already knew that I wanted to do this Come Sunday inspired concert. And it was sort of like, oh my gosh, now's the time. Before he gets busy, I need to quickly ask, after I sort of got my sea legs to get my sort of footing into the program here. I reached out at the end of last semester to say, hey, I have this really insane idea. Do you think it'll work? I'm glad he said yes. So, yeah.
I actually had hoped to do something like this. Coincidentally, every institution I start at, usually my first collaboration my first work is a collaboration with the music department. It's just in my career in the 3 institutions I've been in, it's kind of always like been the thing that started. So this is, I didn't expect it, but when it came to me, I was like, oh wow, okay, well this is kind of on path, so I'm super excited because I feel like every time I do these collaborations, not only is an opportunity to get to meet a new colleague, but our dancers get the opportunity to have this experience, which rarely ever happens for dancers to perform aside live music. And so I jumped at the opportunity.
There's a piece that we'll be performing called Come Sunday by Omar Thomas, who's a living black male composer. He is a star in the world of band right now because he's writing music that takes its sort of intersections from his unique intersectionality as a black American and then his sort of heritage as well. So we get some of the music of the islands. And band is always and has always been a very versatile medium, more I would think than orchestra, because we don't have this steeped tradition in European sort of lineage. So band has always been a very versatile ensemble. So I knew I wanted to do this piece primarily because I grew up in the black church, and that's where my roots are as a musician. And so hearing this music sort of take the world by storm, and I'm like, this is me. Like this is definitely something that I really hold dear to my musical upbringing and being able to share it with my students intimately. Because I know this, so I know the extra nuances that are not on the printed page to be able to sort of bring that forward. And so this piece has been performed by many great ensembles across the country, including the President's Own, our Marine band here in the local area. However, every performance, when I watch it or listen, I go, there's something missing. And I know what the missing aspect is like seeing where this music connects, and it's the movement of the black church experience. So that's where sort of my idea of having the dance aspects came together. And then I decided to sort of curate this whole concert around the space called the black church and what it stands for, the struggle, the strife, the space of identity, and the sort of presence of affirmation and strength, and like this unique space that this space has represented so many different sort of emotions and experiences, historical challenges, historical triumphs in this space called the black church. And the musical connections to that are so deep. You can't have the black church without its unique music that the world appreciates. And so being able to present that with my students on stage here at Mason, along with the collaboration with dance, I think it really creates something that's uniquely special.
Well, I grew up in the Southern Black Church as well, a very charismatic church, and so this piece really forced me to go back and think about my own upbringing and the culture within the Black church and what was the movement that was being done in those churches, and then also tracing that vocabulary back to African diasporic vocabulary, movement vocabulary, and bringing the two in, which is very unique to our dancers because we are more of a classical and contemporary kind of school of dance. So one of the things that I did was I gave them many videos to watch. One of them, all of our students know Revelations, Alvin Ailey's Revelations, but also the second section, which is the praise section, the shout section. There's a movie called Blues Brothers, and there's a church scene within that particular. There's a church scene in that movie, and that culture is what I wanted to capture in that particular section. So I asked them to watch that to kind of, get into character, but also a lot of that vocabulary we're using in the work. It's blending contemporary dance forms, African diasporic dance forms, and then pedestrian movement that is derived from the Black church, all merged into one semblance of vocabulary. So we assemble all of that vocabulary into the work. So I think they're having lots of fun with it, because I think some of them are having to really stretch themselves artistically because they've never done this kind of movement vocabulary before. And also, they didn't grow up in the Black church. So bringing all of those little nuances to them and really like embodying it is really stretching them artistically. And I think at the end of the day, stretching their education is really the goal of all the work that we do. So yeah, so they've been doing really, really well with it. We're finished one section and we're going into a new section, which will be the testimonial section, which is actually the first section. In that particular section, I think we're going to go back and do more contemporary-esque movement, movement that's really derived from a lot of classical, balletic, and important-esque kind of vocabulary. And so we'll do that to show the comparative contrast between the two sections. So we shift movement styles, and both qualitatively and dynamically, to show the difference between the two sections. And so I wanted to start with the first section and choreographing it so that we really, that we get the dancers excited. And that's artistically, that's a larger stretch for them. So we wanted to start with that first so that they have time to really grow into that. And then the first section will be much more akin to what they like doing anyways, or what they're accustomed to doing. So.
And I'll just add that that's also happening with the musicians as well, because the vocabulary of jazz, gospel, these very, very virtuosic riffs are foreign to my students' usual vocabulary. So, blues minor scales and like these sort of 2D sections where like it's like very virtuosic, and me sharing with them like, no, this is how it really is. And there's little quotations from like The Price is Right, and as a church musician, you throw these little riffs in just because you can, right. And you're sort of signifying, as what we call it, into other sort of areas from pop culture. And just seeing my students really dig into it in their performance assessments every week. There's like, okay, this lick, you've got to have it, like, or thinking about James Brown and his awesome musicians, where it's like, if you don't get this lick, you're paying him back some money. So I can't do that with my students, so per se, but it's really expanding their vocabulary. And it's funny just seeing just how invested that our students are in to something that they realize, like, wow, this is new, this is different, but we're willing to embrace it. And my hope is that through music and through art, it's a gateway to maybe cultures that are foreign, such that you gain an intimate appreciation for what that culture stands for, what they have produced in their art, such that when you meet a stranger on the street, you kind of think, well, there's a whole heritage and there's this whole artistic sort of voice, and this is a human being that's worth me getting close to knowing and really appreciating as well. It's been fun. It's entirely too fun.
Yeah, it really is.
I can't believe I get paid to do it, but keep paying me, please. But yeah.
Coincidentally, I'm teaching jazz this semester, which is kind of new to our dance majors. They've never taken jazz in the course of their tenure here. We offer those classes, but they're offered as electives, and so I'm teaching it in the major rotation. So much of that vocabulary is infused within the work, and so the dancers are not only getting this new vocabulary introduced to them in rehearsals, but they're getting it in class. So what they're doing is they're inspired to understand and learn more about jazz, the jazz dance idiom. And so that's been really exciting, because they're actually connecting dots between what they've learned and where it came from, or clarifying where it came from. Mm-hmm. And so that's been really, really interesting, not just seeing them take an interest in the movement vocabulary, but also the history behind the work that they're doing. And so that's been really interesting. And I'm working with all of the senior dance majors because I wanted to work with a population of students that I've only been here a semester, but they're on their way out. So it's been also interesting because this work brings people together, and it builds community. So the seniors are really bridging a lot of like gaps that they might have had with COVID intersecting their tenure here. And so they're really pulling together through this work, and it's been really beautiful to see them come together in ways that I didn't really think the work would bring them together. So not only are they asking questions, but they're also finding a sense of resolve and also really problem solving together. And so it's been beautiful to see them grow as a community of dancers on their way out of here. So
the students are so excited. A piece is well known, and so to put it into our repertoire, which I really value, that our students are well versatile and that they are prepared to be 21st century artists. I really believe that our sort of space is becoming very fluid. The idea of genre is becoming very blurred, and so to actually make it as an artist in our times actually is synonymous with I can do this, I can do that, and not be jack of all trades, master of none, but like, no, I have these well-rounded experiences that I can offer as an artist. So it's great seeing that my students not only collaborate together because they have to play together, but they're asking questions and you can see light bulbs go off. And I love when I'm maybe surrendering the interpretive sort of driving of the rehearsal, and I say, well, what do you think about this? Like, where's the apex of the phrase? Where is this going? What do you think? And they're like, oh, well, we think it's here. And then I was like, so how do we exploit that? And like, why do you think this is it? And should we take more time here, et cetera, to making it our own? And so all of the works that we're performing present unique voices and unique emotions. Doing another piece I'll just put out there, American Guernica by Adolphus Hailstork, which is a sonic depiction of the 1963 Birmingham bombing where the 4 black girls were killed through this act of violence. And so it's aleatoric, it's very 21st century, it doesn't settle well, there's a fire siren that goes off. I mean, it's very, very intense. And then you get these other palettes of like this devotion that all happen in the same place. And so there's conversations that are happening without having to be so explicit about talking about it. And I'm really excited to begin to have dialogue and to ask, like, so what do you think about this? Like, what is happening up here as you experience this music now that we are hopefully getting closer and closer to being beyond just notes and rhythms. We are inviting 2 guests to join us before the concert to have a panel discussion to talk about just this unique space called the Black Church and just its opening aspect and how that opening, welcoming aspect has also brought tragedy as well, thinking about Charleston and the tragedy there. And so it's this unique sort of dualism that we're experiencing together. And I would love to expand these narratives to other cultures, other intersections for our students to explore, and they're asking for this. Like, our students really want to have windows into worlds that are different than their own, and I think music and dance are just 2 examples of just how we can do that in a safe space and to bring a certain level of authenticity to it. You know, I think that's what my students are enjoying because they know, like, I've always been a gospel musician behind this beautiful conducting that I can do over here. And it's like, no, I want to kind of get to know you, and in doing that and explore like your culture, your heritage, and expand my own sort of sense of the world at the same time. So they are so hungry for the next rehearsal. They kind of like cheer at the end of rehearsal, like, oh my God, this was so difficult, but this is amazing. You know, it's precious to see it happen. I saw the first opening sort of clips of the dance after Professor Jackson put the choreography on them, and even in its raw form and just even as a musician, like, oh, I know he's gonna fix that. It's just seeing the joy that emits from the experience, I think is so important. And I'm so glad that Mason is a place that makes doing this type of art safe and something that is affirmed and something that is celebrated, because that's not the case at many different institutions. And for me to be vulnerable and share an aspect of my maybe non-Westernized sort of intersection with things, and it's okay, and it's celebrated. I mean, I just went Tuesday to see Alvin Ailey for the first time, and so me seeing Professor Jackson's choreography and going, oh my God, like there's like 2 seconds of this, that, and the other, but then just realizing that what we're doing is really allowing our students to have this sort of window into that vernacular, that vocabulary that I didn't get growing up, other than being in the church, but it wasn't a space necessarily that intersected with my formal studies and training. And so I'm kind of jealous of my students that, like, wow, at the age of 20, you're getting these experiences that you now get to carry with you for the rest of your artistic career.
So the dancers are super excited to like work with the musicians, and they're already like saying, well, when are we going to work? And I'm like, well, first we have to create something, right? So we're not just standing there nodding our heads while they're playing. And so they're already ready to jump in, and I'm ready for them to jump in too, because these dancers have never, most of them, if not all of them, have never had the experience of working alongside a symphony or a band, or we have live accompaniment in all of our technique classes, but the actual perform with live accompaniment is just, it rarely ever happens for a dancer, and the elements rarely ever come together for a plethora of reasons, and I'm just excited for them to experience, like, the symphony might be feeling this way one night, and so how are you going to adapt to that in the moment? And to have the energy of them, that energy and sound radiating from your backs as you're performing, like what does that feel like, and does that shift the way you're approaching this work artistically? And so we're asking all of these different questions, and once we get into the process, they'll get those questions resolved and answered. And again, as with Dr. Lake's students, like it's like giving your students a gift that I never got, right, until I got in the professional world. And even then, it was several years into my professional dance world that I got the opportunity to perform with a live accompaniment. And so just giving them this opportunity is just so amazing, especially in their last year here. Like, this is the one thing that they can say I've done that I hadn't had in any of the other 3 years that I've been here. It's super, super exciting, and I'm super excited to sit back and watch and observe them, like when they start working with the musicians, and I'm like, see, yeah, that doesn't sound right? Yeah, so how are you going to problem solve this in the moment? I'm super excited, super excited.
Yeah, and my students, we are still definitely in the woodshedding. That piece is really difficult. It's not easy at all. Especially the second movement is going by so fast, and keeping the tempo up, and it's got to be agile, and the tempo has got to be consistent for the choreography that's in front as much as possible. But I mean, of course, we're living, so it fluxes, but we're trying to be consistent with that. I'm fearing when the students see the dancers that they pay more attention to the dancers than the music on the page, which when you're in orchestra pits, it's sort of like the musicians don't see what's on the stage, they just accept it and they just play. But the way we're going to do it in the concert hall is we're on stage and the dancers are in front of us. And so with the lights going and everything, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know they're going to want to see all this, and like, I need you to play. Like, that's what you need to do. Yeah. Watch the recording when it's over. But it's so precious, like, and I can't blame them, because I would want to know, like, well, what are y'all doing when we do this and things like that. So it's really captivating. I'm jealous that my back is going to be to it, and I won't see it at all. But that's also why I'm also very, very appreciative with the support that we've gotten from the School of Music and the College of Visual and Performing Arts to record this for the artists on the stage. Like, I know the public will enjoy it, but like, we don't get to often consume our art. And as an artist, and I'm sure Professor Jackson will share, it's different when you can step away from the doing of the art and to consume, and you're like, wow, like I didn't realize that this was impactful, or wow, this is really good, Yeah. So I'm really excited about that. The pressure's on my students, because we know that the School of Dance here at Mason is very well known and very competitive to be in, and very high class teaching faculty. I think we have the same thing in the School of Music as well. When you do collaborations like this and you make things a big deal, everyone sort of straightens up a little bit and puts the extra sweat equity to making that happen, which I think is so healthy for us in artistic spaces, because that is the real world, that is our world, and we have to create these, I call them like collision spaces in art, where, okay, we've put this together the Thursday before, and Dr. Lake, this is too fast, or it's too slow, or Professor Jackson looks and goes, dancers, like, did you not hear it? Like, it's there. And for them to have that sort of real life sort of production experience is absolutely amazing, and they'll be able to put it in their portfolio and say, that's me doing this thing. And for the music educators and maybe dance educators, realizing the power of collaboration is so important. In many universities, we don't do it enough because of the issue of time, I think, is time and relationship. This requires time. It requires really trying to plan and to dream and to trust each other's sort of specialty. Like, I have not given him a single 8 count at all. I'm sure he would look at my score and be like, bro, I fix it. I don't know, do something.
Yeah.
But that's what I think is so special about the university experience, that I get to work with absolutely wonderful colleagues and make something special that me by myself alone would have never been able to do. And I think it's good for our students to see faculty collaborating, which I think is really, really important. Mason's altogether different. It's like all together people come together, and then create something that's unique and different. I think there's only one other ensemble in the country who has set this piece to dance, and I don't think a recording exists of it, but I'm pretty sure we're the first university to do this, and I've been chomping at the bit to do this, so I'm really, really excited, and I'm hoping that our collaborations will continue between our two different but interconnected disciplines, because I think this is what our students want, and I think this is what our community wants, and I want it as well, so I'm really excited about all of that.
I absolutely love collaborating. I love collaborating with musicians. I love collaborating with visual artists. I love collaborating with theater people. So I think for me, my choreography is always enhanced. I find that I'm more artistically inspired when I'm collaborating with people. It expands my choreographic voice. It forces me to deepen my understanding of what it is that I'm doing, because I have to consistently communicate that with the collaborators. Versus sometimes when I'm alone and I'm just like, oh, dancers just do this abstract thing, I have no idea what it means, and I don't have to explain it to anybody. For me, I definitely thrive on doing collaborations because, again, it stretches me as an artist, and I don't get bored with my work. So I definitely want to do something in the future. What that might be, I have no idea. So.
Yeah, I agree. This is too big right now to sort of dream forward. It would make me, I'm not a very anxious person, but the idea of like, oh, and there's another collaboration coming. Even though we are doing another collaboration with Pershing Zone, our United States Army Band, later this semester. But I think it will be a fabric that I do want to constantly revisit and to continue to find different threads, whether it's with Professor Jackson or like visual art, et cetera. So that way my students are getting the entire plethora of how collaborations could work, whether it's spoken word, if it's a indigenous DC go-go band and we've put something together. Just the idea that we can create something new and fresh all the time. And I think dance is one way. I think it's a very important way. Dance and music have been married, I think, since the beginning of time. And so it's definitely something I definitely want to revisit for sure, because it does so much for, I think, our building, and just like the energy, the buzz is different because there's this huge thing that's going on. Like as soon as we put the posters up and things, and the students are like, oh, this is real. Like, oh, the dance, like this is gonna happen. Like, yes, go practice now. Like, it's great. And so I really appreciate, Professor Jackson's willingness to just trust a stranger to create something for our very knowledgeable public in this area, and for his students, just vulnerability to share, and mine to try something totally different. This is not your traditional band concert by any means. And I think that's part of what I really appreciate about being here at Mason, is that I can reimagine like what this ensemble does, and every concert we can reconfigure ourselves and, okay, we'll do a straightforward band concert, and now we'll do something off the beaten path. I think it's just really important. So it's stimulating to me artistically. This is consuming every aspect of my life. I don't know if you, I just can't stop thinking of, okay, who do we invite? What do we do? Like, is this in the right place? Okay, do we have the benches for the, okay, or and so the stress of it all is so therapeutic as an artist. I probably, when this is over, I'm gonna cry in a corner somewhere, just because it's been so much, and it's like you've given it now to the world the best of what you can. And I think the big thing is that we've given it to our students, and they carry it with them in their artistic careers.